Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move that the Terrorism Act 2000 Proscribed Organisations Amendment Order of 2025, which was laid before the House on the 30th of June, be approved. I'm grateful to the House for its consideration of this draft order, which will see three distinct groups proscribed. They are Maniacs Murder Cult, Palestine Action and the Russian Imperial Movement. I'm going to make a bit of progress. I think it is not unreasonable. The proscription of these three organisations will reaffirm the UK's zero-tolerance approach to terrorism, regardless of its form or underlying ideology. Now, first, Madam Deputy Speaker, it may be helpful if I set out some background to the prescription power. To prescribe an organisation, the Home Secretary must reasonably believe that it is concerned in terrorism. This means that the organisation commits or participates in terrorism, it prepares for terrorism, it promotes or encourages terrorism, or it is otherwise concerned in terrorism. Some 80 terrorist organisations are currently proscribed under the Terrorism Act of 2000. Prescription is, rightly, ideologically neutral. It judges an organisation on its actions and the actions it is willing to deploy in pursuit of its cause. The UK's definition of terrorism was established in law a quarter of a century ago, and it has stood the test of time and extensive scrutiny since. I'll make a little bit of progress and then I will give way. It has three limbs. One, the use or threat of action must reach a certain level of seriousness, such as serious violence or serious damage to property. Two, the use or threat must be designed to influence a government or intimidate the public or a section of the public. And three, the use or threat must be made for the purpose of advancing a political, religious, racial or ideological cause. Successive independent reviewers of terrorism legislation have upheld the UK's terrorism definition as effective and fit for purpose, even as the threat from terrorism has evolved. I'll give way in just a moment. Madam Deputy Speaker, prescription is one of the most powerful counter-terrorism tools available to government. Any decision to prescribe is taken with great care and following rigorous consideration, as noted by Jonathan Hall KC in his report on the operation of the Terrorism Acts of 2022. I will give way to the right honourable gentleman.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Minister for giving way, and I'm grateful to him for that. I think the question that many of us want to put to him is, why has he linked these three organisations together? He clearly has made a judgment on each of the three organisations independently of each other. And I think it would be fair, and I'm sure many outside would think it would be fair, if we were taking individual votes on the three. Because many of us are very concerned about the issue facing Palestine Action, and that is the issue that we wish to address in the debate here today.
Mr. Dan Jarvis.
I can say to the right honourable gentleman that I will come on and explain with real clarity precisely why we have proceeded in the way that we have. But I suspect that he has a long memory, and he will recall, I'm sure, that when he's voted against prescribing a number of organisations previously, including Al-Qaeda in 2001, that particular motion was bundled along with 20 other militant organisations. So there is clear precedent for doing this. And I can say to him, the reason that we seek to do it is to demonstrate that we don't attach any kind of ideological prism with which to seek to make a judgment.
The Minister will be aware that the High Court has granted Palestine Action permission for a legal challenge. Rather than the Home Secretary, who is not here today, rushing it through Parliament, shouldn't this be delayed until the judicial process has concluded?
Well, I can say to the honourable member, we're certainly not seeking to rush it through Parliament. These are matters that the Home Secretary and I have considered for some time. with regard to the point that she made about legal challenge, there is a clear route to legal challenge. Should an organisation be proscribed, it has the opportunity to pursue a legal route of challenge. That is entirely within the right of any organisation who are proscribed to do so, and that is a matter for them.
Question of Palestine Action. The Minister will be aware that very many of us in this chamber think that Palestine Action is in a different category from the other two organisations he's seeking to prescribe. And can I ask him, is he aware that several UN special rapporteurs, including those protecting human rights, say that they have contacted the UK government to say that acts of protest that damage property but are not intended to kill or injure people should not be treated as terrorism?
Well, I am grateful to the Mother of the House because I think she makes an important point. Before I respond to it, let me just say very politely and very gently, I hope, to her and to others, if the actions of the particular group that we are considering at the moment had been conducted by an organisation who held different ideological motives, my strong sense is that she and some of her colleagues would be strongly recommending that the government moved to prescribe them. I have to say that is, I'm afraid, the conclusion that I have arrived at. Now, she specifically mentioned the point about the United Nations. We did, as a government, receive a letter from the UN Special Procedures mandate holders. This was at the end of 2024, and the UK government provided a full response to this, which has been published. But I would just sort of gently say to her that ultimately matters relating to our national security and ensuring that we keep the public safe are very much matters for this country and not for other organisations.
Minister, can I just put on record that this heavy-handed approach threatens basic freedoms and sets a dangerous precedent for all political dissent in the UK? Does he acknowledge that?
Minister.
I don't acknowledge that, and I don't accept his characterisation of the decision that we have taken. And if you'll just listen to what I have to say in a moment, I hope that he will understand why we're progressing in the way that we are. Madam Deputy Speaker, the attack at Bryce Norton on the 20th of June has, quite understandably, provoked shock and anger in this House and across the country. But the reality is that this was just the latest episode in Palestine Action's long history of harmful activity. Palestine Action has orchestrated a nationwide campaign of property damage featuring attacks that have resulted in serious damage to property and crossed the threshold from direct criminal action into terrorism.
The question here is not about whether the people were committing crimes or not, but whether someone who even expresses support for them should face up to 14 years in jail. The bar for which groups should be prescribed as terrorist organisations is rightly set very high. Transparency around why these decisions are made is crucial for maintaining the public's trust in our counter-terrorism framework. So I've been listening carefully, both to experts raising their concerns, including from the UN, as mentioned previously by the Mother of the House, but also what the Minister has said and the Home Secretary's words about her reasons for making this decision based on damage to property, notwithstanding the Minister's comments about the use of violence. Prescribing an organisation solely on the grounds of serious damage to property would be, I believe, unprecedented.
What we haven't heard, actually, is the huge implication that this will have on some of our communities. The risk of being criminalised simply for showing support for Palestine. Under this prescription, people could face prosecution for something as simple as wearing a badge, sharing a post online, or attending a peaceful protest. Now, the question for this House is, do we really want to become a society where non-violently expressing solidarity or even speaking out could be interpreted as terrorism? This will only further fuel fear and repression. Local anti-racist groups could suddenly find themselves under suspicion. communities, whole communities, could be cast as suspect, not for what they do, but for what they stand for. And there's numerous examples. I don't have the time today. My honourable friend, the member for Leeds East, as always, eloquently set out a number of examples that should send shivers, frankly, down the backs of everybody's spine in this place. This is not the way forward. A non-violent protest, what our democracy is meant to protect, now risks being labelled as terror. The legal basis for this prescription is unsound. The democratic consequences are severe and the moral cost is frankly unacceptable. Let me be clear, it will disproportionately target campaigners and minority communities, and it will set a precedent that reaches far beyond this one group. Today it's Palestine Action, tomorrow it could be climate activists. We are standing on a slippery slope. Prescribing a protest group is not strength.
Because what is even worse, this statutory instrument risks criminalising anyone who supports, sympathises with, or even publicly praises Palestine Action's aims. It opens the door to the prosecution of journalists, filmmakers, campaigners and politicians for doing nothing more than expressing solidarity. This is Orwellian dystopia on steroids. Let us also ask ourselves honestly, if we set this precedent today, who will be next? History will judge us harshly on those who choose silence in moments of moral testing.
I want to know if this order goes through and I go out there to the demonstration that's mobilising at the moment to say I'm opposed to this, will I be prosecuted?
Not a point of order. The Minister may wish to respond. He has a few minutes to do so, but that's not a point of order. Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm happy to respond directly to the right honourable gentleman's point of order. The process involving prescription action requires this House to agree it. Should it do so later this evening, it then goes to the other place and it will be for them to agree it or not. It will then be for the Home Secretary or for myself to sign an order, and the order would then become law at midnight on the night that it had been signed.
Order, order.
The ayes to the right, 385. The noes to the left, 26.
The ayes to the right were 385, the noes to the left 26, so the ayes have it, the ayes have it.